2020 was, this project was the case of media picking up on other media. So ATF had participated in an article that appeared in GQ, that magazine, that highlighted one of our murder for hire investigations in Colorado. The 2020 senior producer read that article and then reached out to ATF to possibly do a larger feature on murder for hire investigations. So after we met with the producers and agreed on the project, we had to go through the process of finding cases to feature during the episode. The Public Affairs Division reviewed over 50 cases working with the 2020 producers, and we ended up narrowing it down to 5 cases that we wanted to highlight. From there, we went through all the case documents. We vetted the cases to make sure that we were able to promote them and they were able to go to air. And then we presented them and started from there.
Lisa Soloway, I'm a senior producer for 2020. I'm executive editorial producer for the Law and Justice Unit, and I work at ABC News 2020.
And my name is Sean Dooley, and I'm a producer at 2020 at ABC News. I mean, there's a lot that goes into sort of a pre-shoot. We have pre-shoot meetings where we'll sort of figure out exactly how we want to lay it out. We'll talk about, how many cameras we're going to have there. We'll talk about the kind of questions we're going to ask there, the kind of look of the interview, all that stuff is sort of addressed. So there's a lot that goes into prepping for a shoot. And then obviously there's the whole sort of editorial side of it as well, which is kind of prepping our anchor, whoever, or our correspondent, whoever's going to be there doing the interview. We obviously have several meetings with them. We all go over questions together, what we think, is the sort of what we're trying to get across in the interview, the information that we're trying to get out of the person that we're talking to. All that stuff is addressed before we go in and we do a shoot.
Like with this story, some of the cases sounded really interesting, but we needed to know what elements existed. Was there interrogation tapes? Are there 911 calls? Are there, obviously surveillance tapes? Those kinds of things that would make it really work for us. If none of the cases had any of those elements, this probably would not be. We would probably maybe be a smaller piece. Or maybe not at all.
So once we narrowed it down to these 5 cases, the second challenge was that 4 of the 5 undercover agents needed their identities concealed for this broadcast. In this case, 2020 brought more resources to the table than a normal outlet would bring. They hired professional makeup artists to basically take molds and reconfigure their faces for this episode. It was a process that took over 5 hours, but once it was done, just with makeup, you couldn't recognize these undercover agents.
Ken Fewer, and I was the DP of this particular shoot. This was a little bit more than the average because it was kind of complex, and we were breaking screen direction principles and that type of thing. So I literally was talking to the producer about the shoot about 6 weeks ago. It got changed around, postponed a few times, but it took a little bit of talking through this particular shoot because it is a little bit out of the norm. This was a very, very unusual shoot in so many ways because we had 7 cameras working at one point, and one of them was on a dolly. And once you throw a dolly into the mix, everything changes because that takes up, you see so much real estate in the shot. So you have to really make certain that, you have all your light stands out of the shot, cables, and all sorts of stuff like that. What made this shoot even more interesting and different was the fact that a lot of the agents that we were shooting had prosthetic makeup put on. And, we were really uncertain how they would look on camera. When they came on camera, I would say it looked more like theatrical prosthetics than it did feature film prosthetics, and that probably had a lot to do with budget and time. So it on camera, on the close-ups, and if they were lit too brightly, it didn't look really good. So we were really cautious about making sure that it was lit in a way where we can disguise the fact that they were disguised and not make it too bright and make it dark and moody at the same time. So there were a lot of variables at play in this shoot. It was kind of a challenge in that way. And we didn't know what we would have until they sat in those chairs. In this particular shoot, we had 5 agents and a reporter. That's 6 people. Much more difficult to do a shoot like that than just a simple one-on-one. So those are probably the biggest variables.
It's hard it's really hard to disguise people, and so that was something that we had to take into account when we were planning for this shoot as well.
From the ATF point of view, the goal was simple. It was to promote the fact that ATF agents, and specifically ATF undercover agents, put themselves at risk to go after violent crime. And in this case, the violent crime is somebody wanting somebody else murdered. In these cases, we believe that if the ATF undercover agent wasn't hired to do the hit, so to speak, that person would just move on to somebody else who would do it. So we want to show that in a way, through doing these cases and having undercover agents who have this expertise, we were able to actually save lives.